Hey guys and girls, Board now back with you for this week's Perry Mason review, the HBO version, and it's the third episode of this limited series, and it's simply called Chapter 3. So another solid episode, I thought. I didn't like it as much as last week. In fact, it might be the weakest so far in some ways, but still very enjoyable. Still doing some interesting and fun stuff. I think with this show, I think what I'm really enjoying about it is the character stuff and some of the ideas and themes, the noir sort of style to it, because it's definitely quite a hammy, pulpy show, and boy do they ham it up in this episode. And I'm not complaining. I mean, you get like courtroom sequences in this episode because they do like the whole hearing for Emily, where she gets to like make her plea and what have you, and they decide whether she's going to get bail, which they ultimately set a bail, but they set it at a really high price, so she essentially can't afford it. And it's played up the fact that her husband is obviously rich, but now he's rich, she's not, but now there's this divide between them because he he kind of believes that she might have had something to do with their with Charlie, their child's kidnapping. He's found out about the affair with the other man, and he's kind of turned on Emily, so he's not going to pay for her bail. But yeah, in like the courtroom scene, they're really hamming it up something rotten. You have John Lithgow really going to town. You have the actress who plays Emily, the one out of Glow, who's really hysterical in it. And the whole court, the sort of atmosphere, because there's a moment where she appears to not know what she's doing because she actually says guilty when asked for the verdict, and they jump all over this. That like there's the woman in court like, oh, she said guilty, and it all starts kicking off. But yeah, and then they come back to her, and like the Lithgow lawyer has a word with her, and Emily then says not guilty, and they sort of accept that as the plea. But yeah, you get some great character stuff in this episode where the characters and the actors are just like having a whale of a time, because before they go to like the courtroom scene, you get the two sides of the coin. Really, you have the Stephen Root character who's obviously trying to prosecute Emily. So he's making his case to like the press, and he's again really hamming it up. But you sort of believe it because it's eccentric characters, and also I think because the press is there and they're trying to get their case across, they're being like ultra dramatic for the cameras and stuff. So you do sort of believe it. And so you have him on the one hand, and then you have Lithgow, who's like he's at the barber's, he's like getting a sort of a shave, and he's sitting there just talking to, I don't know, it must be like a report or something, but he's kind of making his case. But yeah, there's some great hammy acting in this episode, which I appreciated a lot. But as I said, I do think it is the character stuff and some of the noir stuff which is like making it a very watchable sort of show. The case itself is whatever. I mean, it's not too bad, and obviously it's still developing every week, but it's not really what I'm sold on about the show. I think I'm more into just the characters and the performances. Again, I think Matthew Rhys is really at home as Perry Mason. I think it's really good casting, and I'm such a big fan of Tatiana Maslany as well as Sister Alice. She sort of stole last week's episode, and she comes close to stealing this week's as well. I mean, she's certainly fantastic. So I'll talk a little bit about some of her stuff because we see her sort of growing influence around this case and in the community. But we also see how the church is concerned about the case and about the reputation of Emily. And you have the Lily Taylor character who's at one point telling Sister Alice, because Sister Alice is very much in support of Emily. She goes to the jail cell and sort of goes to pray with her, and she's like defending her, and because Emily's is sort of blaming herself because of the affair and stuff, and Alice, kind of rationalised, well, you didn't actually like stick a knife to the child or anything like that, so you are innocent. And she's almost like, I don't know, questioning God or almost like just saying, well, God does work in mysterious ways, and reassuring Emily that she hasn't like betrayed God. And she's there really like defending her because Emily has like this sort of chaperone or someone they've put on her to watch her in jail. I guess in case people like lash out at her or something. But I guess just because she's got a court case coming up, and she's very much biased against Emily. She sees her as like this killer, and is really kind of not doing her job. She's letting her bias get in her way, and Sister Alice kind of defends Emily against her and people like her. But there is like this tension behind the scenes in the church and the various characters. Obviously, you've got the Robert Patrick character, and you've got, as I said, the Lily Taylor. Taylor. I always do that. I sort of almost say Tyler, but the Lily Taylor character, who at one point in the episode is advising Sister Alice, then the church just needs to cut Emily loose because she cheated on her husband, and just because of the accusation of then she was involved conspiracy to kidnapping. That they don't need that. They don't need that sort of press is what she's saying, even though she may or may not be innocent. That's sort of neither here or there as far as the church goes. So there's sort of a lot of pressure and a lot of like sort of politics going on in the background. And another really good scene with Sister Alice is early in the episode where Perry Mason goes to interview her. And the line of questioning is about George, because they find out that George, the woman Emily had the thing with, and now has been found dead. He worked for the church. He volunteered as a choir boy. He was in the choir. and the back and forth between Alice and Perry is just sort of fantastic in this. Um, because there's a funny line from Perry Mason where he's like, "Was that the only hole George was 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 in or something or that?" Oh no, I've got the line. Was it the only hole that George filled? Which is just brilliant, and the deadpan delivery from Rears. But by the end of the scene, Alice has sort of turned it around on him because she's kind of like judging him and say that God's sort of judging him. But also she's kind of trying to work a mojo on him where she's trying to persuade him to the ways of God. And of course he's the total opposite of that. He's very like suspicious of God and isn't a religious man at all. But yeah, there's just this line from her because he apparently has like, I can't remember whether his mother actually is dead or if she's dying. I think she might have some like terminal illness or something. It's mentioned here, and he's like, "Oh, so you're gonna bring up my dying mother now, and you're gonna tell me what she would say to me?" And Sister Alice said, "Yeah, she says to you, do you always?" It's either do you always leave the house with dirty nails or yeah, don't do that sort of thing. It's pretty funny, but it's a supercharged scene. There's some nice back and forth between the two actors, um, and yeah, hopefully there's going to be quite a few scenes between them in the shows because that would sort of be good. And just speaking of the whole thing with Perry Mason's nails, um, which actually is a clever little thing because of Alice being religious. Because later on, when there's like this heated exchange between Mason and I can't remember which character. I think it's either the Stephen Root character or it's the I think it's the Robert Patrick one where they're sort of like arguing over the case. I forget which. It might even be one of the detectives, to be honest. I forget. I think it was like the detective like working the case. But yeah, there's a point made about his nails, and again, sort of saying, well, you're gay, right? And gay people. I don't really know what the relevance is with the nails and being gay, unless they're just saying he's quite flamboyant because he's got like coloured sort of nails. But yeah, it's not the first time his sexuality has been like hinted at, so that could be a direction they go in later on, and that does tie into the Sister Alice like comments because obviously with her being religious, she might be quite judgmental when it comes to that sort of thing. So pretty good stuff, and I should talk a bit about the ending actually, because with Sister Alice, because she has this really trippy sort of like ceremony at the end where it's a whole like performance style thing. So she's dressed up as like a sailor, as just like a captain of a ship sort of thing. And that's kind of the whole metaphor that they're going for, is that she's like sailing the ship. A bit like she's just like sailing the ship of the town almost. She is running this sort of town. She is leading it, showing the guidance. And again, it's all the time. It's like ramping things up and saying, "Hey, the police and that they're not doing enough. There's corruption in the town, so forth." And she's obviously using this for her own sort of gain and purposes. Um, but yeah, it's just this really bizarre sort of ceremony. Of course, the Sister Alice character is based on a real character. And now, whether the real Sister Alice actually went and had this sort of like bizarre sort of production, who knows? Because it's a real production. It's very eye catching, but it's super cheesy as well, but in a kind of in a believable way. I think you can believe that there are people like this and that they do this just go to these lengths to kind of get their message out there. But it's really absurd. But it looks very eye catching, and again, Tatiana Maslany just steals the show. She just has this presence to her. But the ending was kind of random because she's obviously getting, like, maybe her health isn't the best, or she's just a lot of stress on her because she just collapses on the stage, and that they gather around her, and she then is saying that then she's got a message from God, and the message from God is that basically that it's then he will he will resurrect Charlie. That's it. So that's what she says at the end, and then she collapses again and seems to go into this sort of dream type metaphor where she's then on, like, we cut to her on the boat out at sea and she's like literally passed out. Now, the way this was going, I wondered if she'd actually died, but I can't see that being the case. This is only the third episode, and she seems a pretty big character, so I can't think. I guess she's just like passed out or something, and she might she could have some sort of an illness or be passed out. But yeah, certainly an interesting ending. So I'll talk about a couple of the case details. So as I said, they find out that George works at a casino. They sort of follow that up at one point, Perry Mason and his girlfriend. So she has a little bit of a part in this episode, not a great deal. They go to the casino. Mason starts asking questions. He doesn't find out a great deal, but he's sort of told by the manager that he left the casino because he wanted to turn to religion. We get a little scene, another sort of like more, I think, typically like noirish sort of moment, a more playful scene where Mason, like, and his girlfriend, they sort of kiss under the fountain, and that, because I quite enjoyed their stuff in the first episode. This scene felt a bit more kind of cheesy, in that it was not really doing too much, and you sort of wonder how much they can go to this well without having him or having her have a bit more of a role. But again, this could play into his sexuality a little bit, because if it's later revealed then he is homosexual, so obviously him having this thing with this character could be a bit of a front. Now they end up getting the teeth from the crime scene where the bodies were, and they get that from Drake, because Drake finally gives Perry Mason some information, because he's sort of been pursuing him throughout the episode, but because of the pressure placed on Drake from the superiors, the detectives, he's been scared to do anything. And at one point, he reacts violently when Mason's like pursuing him on the street, and he gives him like a good punch to the gut and says, "No, don't mess with me. Just stay away from me." But he later goes to him and sort of in private, and he tells him what he knows, because Mason is like suspicious, and the whole report was changed, and that he might know something about that. So, but Drake says, well, yeah, it did look suspicious because the blood seemed to be going up and over the roof and away like they were escaping, and that there was dried blood found in the alley. And then he gives him the teeth, and he just says, "What if this leads somewhere, then leave me out of it. Basically, I'll have no comment. I'll just deny it." So he's obviously doing the right thing, or what he sees as the right thing, by giving Mason this lead, but he does it with the provision that then his name is left out of it, because he's worried about him and his family, because that's one of the other big scenes in the episode. And the sort of shady detective who's seen him talking to Mason sort of approaches Drake and his wife when they're at like a market, and he's basically quite threatening because she's pregnant, and does that sort of sinister thing where he like touches the sort of like the pregnant stomach, and makes kind of suggestive like remarks, and he basically makes it clear then Drake's not to talk. But then he goes a step further, because he actually buys some food for them and the family. And I think it's this side which really hits home the point they're making, because of course, I mean, nowadays there's a divide between the races, but in terms of like equality and riches, but probably back then even more so, because even though Drake has this job on the police force, he's clearly on the wrong end of the breadline, I should say. His family are struggling to make ends meet, and so that's partly what that whole scene is about, where he buys them the bread, but also he's using it as a bribe. He's kind of saying, yeah, I can give you stuff like this, I can treat you to stuff like this if you just do the right thing. So later on it kind of comes out, and the wife is like, hey, if they want to do that, then we should accept it. If that's what it takes for them to leave us alone, we should do it, because we have to think about our family. And you can totally understand where she's coming from, even though there's like a morality to what he's saying, and it's certainly a murky area, but you can understand it. So anyway, he gives Mason that information. And Mason, I think this is part of the fun of the series, is this unconventional noirish type tactic where Mason and his partner breaks into like the morgue at night, and they start searching the bodies of like the crooks and seeing if the teeth match, basically, and they come to George's body, and they try the teeth, and the teeth does indeed match. So now it seems obvious he was killed by someone, for obviously shady reasons, but the question is, who did it? And we already know that, but who did it? Why did they do it? So that becomes a thing. So there you have it. That's pretty much the episode, or the bulk of it anyway. as I said, another pretty decent episode. I'm enjoying this a fair bit. I didn't enjoy it as much as last week's, but pretty strong stuff once again. And we'll see where it leads. I mean, obviously there's 8 episodes, so it could sort of run out of steam at some point. But you know, I think, as I said, the case isn't as compelling overall, maybe, as the stuff with the characters and the politics and just some of the quirky little moments. I think that's what I'm enjoying most about this show. But yeah, decent stuff once again. So that's Perry Mason, episode 3, chapter 3. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you are new to the channel. I will just say, no pressure, but I am coming up to 250 subs. So thank you everyone for supporting the channel and getting me up to almost that number. I'm on 249, so the next sub will be the 250th, and that would be a great feeling. And I'll celebrate by having a live stream, because why not? But just a couple more things coming up this week. I'm gonna make a start on the X-Files. That's my brand new sort of older classic show, which I'm gonna be reviewing from the start to the finish. So you can expect a review of the pilot of the X-Files later in the week. And also this week, a new Netflix original series, Stateless, which starts tomorrow on Netflix. All 6 episodes, I think, are going up tomorrow. Stars Levon Strahovski of The Handmaid's Tale fame. So I'm going to check out the pilot of that, and you can expect a review of that around about this time tomorrow, or maybe the next day. But there you have it. Couple more things coming up on the channel this week. But thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.